Social Affairs and Microfinance delivered a message to the people of Benin Republic. The lack of rainfall remains a major obstacle for this year's crops amidst over food security in Tunisia. As parts of southeast Turkey struggle to recover from last month's earthquake, many are questioning why so many relatively modern buildings collapsed in 7.8 magnitude tremor in Turkey. Good afternoon, our dear viewers. Welcome to the 1 p.m. news edition, coming to you live and direct from GOLFE TV Africa, here in the city of Cotonou with Hazel OGBOIGBE. Now to the news in detail, starting from the local scene. As part of the International Women's Day, the Minister of Social Affairs and Microfinance delivered a message to the people of Benin and in particular the Beninese women. More information in the following extract.
Chers compatriotes, le gouvernement du Bénin, à travers sa politique nationale de développement, s'est engagé pour la promotion du capital humain au service du développement durable inclusif.
Dear compatriots, the government of Benin has been working on its national development policy, which is so important for the promotion of human capital as well as for the development of an inclusive society. This postulate calls for diverse opportunity, prevention and fight against gender-based violence, professional lawfulness, and women's economic autonomy in social and political law, promotion of legal inclusion for gender, women's place in the media, culture, and sports. Our department will ensure that each sector of development carries out the actions necessary to achieve the objective of living together, which promotes women's empowerment in all areas of social and economic life. Thus, there is a need to strengthen the legal and institutional framework to reduce gender-based violence in general and violence against women in particular. The government has undertaken to put in place facilities to ensure and protect the rights of women and girls in digital spaces, in addition to tackling gender-based violence online. It is therefore right that our ministerial department highlights on this day the need for inclusive and transformative technology and digital education, which highlights the contribution of women and girls to the advancement of technology and digital education. Ladies and gentlemen, a few weeks ago in Benin, we celebrated the girls and women of science. Today, we present to you all the innovations put in place by the government so that each girl and each woman in Benin uses technology and digital technology in order to obtain information to connect their skills and to promote their income-generating activities to boost their trade. The promotion of startups, the full national coverage of internet access, the development of products easily accessible through the digital channel, such as the microcredit Alafia, are among the initiatives to liberalize access to economic opportunities for all and for Beninese women. We would like to welcome the substantial increase in the number of girls who are in vocational and technical training establishments or who are in training in various technological and digital fields. Thanks to the offer of a scholarship by our department, we also welcome the beneficiaries of the microcredit product and especially the number of women beneficiaries. Ladies and gentlemen, dear compatriots, this provision of intra and intersectoral initiative justifies the collaboration and synergy of action of the three ministerial departments for the celebration of March 8, 2023. On the eve of March 8, our colleagues in the digital space raised awareness and informed the Beninese women about the opportunities offered by the digital platform in the promotion of their economic activity. We also took the opportunity to warn of the danger that awaits in the erroneous or abusive use of the social network and the prevention of such danger from the internet. To the citizens, I bid you farewell.
Away from that, still on the local scene, in the past, learning a trade was considered to be reserved for pupils who had difficulties in school or pupils who come from poor families. But today, the trend has changed. More and more students are dropping out of school to learn a trade that will provide them with a livelihood. More information in the following commentary. In the past, learning a trade was considered to be reserved for pupils who had difficulties at school or people that come from poor families. But today, the trend has changed. More and more students are dropping out of school to learn a trade that will provide them with a livelihood immediately after training, at the expense of long studies that do not necessarily guarantee a bright future. The lack of employment opportunities, appropriate training and programs to support young people's initiative, therefore partly explains the rush of learners to learn a trade, in addition to the fact that they are eager to be independent, free from their parents. Apprenticeship has therefore become the answer to unemployment and underemployment in Benin Republic. Even young graduates resort to it, as most employees testify. The uncertainty of the future, the lack of support and the need to become independent quickly push these youngsters to resort to trades rather than pursue their dreams in colleges and universities. Sadly, in most cases, parents are also pushing their children to make this choice because of lack of resources to further their education. For decades, the government of Benin has been encouraging young people to go into technical and vocational training. Today, they understand more and more what is at stake, and the system must be able to adapt to the realities and help create new structures in the economic ecosystem in Benin Republic. Dropping out of school to learn a trade is not bad in itself, as not everyone is cut out to be employed in an administrative role, but it is very important the youngsters be careful so as not to saturate the sector by training more people for jobs that will ultimately no longer be useful to the Beninese society. Away from that, the Independent National Electoral Commission on Tuesday issued certificates of return to winners of the February 25, 2023 senatorial elections in Nigeria. Now, the chairman of INEC, Mahmoud Yakubu, presented the certificates to the senator-elect at the National Coalition Center, Abuja. Yakubu had on Saturday said winners were declared for 443 legislative seats, indicating that supplementary elections were conducted in 46 other constituencies.
11 days after the presidential and National Assembly elections, INEC presents certificates of return to 98 senators-elect. The newly elected lawmakers will constitute the 10th National Assembly, where they're expected to discharge their parliamentary responsibilities and attend to issues facing Nigerians. Some of those who received the certificate of return include the incumbent Senate President of the 9th Assembly, Ahmed Lawan, and Chief Whip Senator Ojuzo Kalu. Others include former Minister of the Niger Delta Affairs, Godswill Akpabio, Senator representing Anambra Central, Victor May, Senator representing FCT, Ireti Kingibe, and a host of others. For the senators-elect, it presents a new opportunity to effectively serve their constituents.
I'll continue to represent them and be their voice on the bigger national issues, the issues of appropriate constitutional reform, the issues of restructuring, therefore, the issues of environmental equity and justice, and the issues of inclusion, and working with friends and allies across party lines to bring about a new Nigeria.
The 9th Senate did a lot of reforms, and we're going to continue living on that reform. We're going to continue staying fully to what we did. We're going to focus, as a person, I like to focus on economic problems, but look at the debt, look at the subsidy issues strictly, then go back to look at electoral processes.
I will work with my colleagues in the National Assembly, particularly in the Senate, to ensure that we have good governance for the country. We address the concerns of all Nigerians. We address the issues of the economy, the welfare, the security of the country, and of course, most important, the issue of youth restiveness. It's important that we address the concerns of the youths and focus on the youthful population. So at the end, we can leave something behind for them.
The new 10th National Assembly is not without female senators. For the senator-elect representing the FCT, it will not be business as usual at the Senate. She says the new assembly will enact laws that will affect the lives of the masses for good.
I am here to serve the interest of everybody, and that they can all be sure of. That is my message to all of them. And I also want them to understand that fixing Nigeria is not just the job of the leaders, it's also the work of the people. We all have to join hands, work together to achieve the goals that we all want.
For the 11 outstanding senatorial seats, INEC says it will conduct supplementary elections, while the House of Representatives elect are expected to receive their certificate of return on Wednesday, March the 8th.
Crossing over to the news in brief. The United Nations Security Council voted on Wednesday to renew for a year the sanctions regime that has hit Sudan since 2005 and the Darfur conflict. But Russia and China abstained with 13 votes in favor and 2 abstentions. The Council decided to extend until the 12th of March 2024 the mandate of the panel of experts originally appointed under the Resolution 1591 of 2005 and previously extended by a number of successive texts voted against Sudan over the past 18 years. This is according to the new Resolution 2676. Back to the African scene. E-waste is the world's fastest growing domestic waste. The rapid growth in technology has contributed to an increase in electronic waste generation in the last decade, which is affecting the environment. More information in the following reports.
Growth in technology has contributed to an increase in electronic waste, e-waste generation in the last decade, which is affecting the environment. E-waste is the world's fastest growing domestic waste. This is fueled by the higher consumption rate of electric and electronic equipment, the short life cycle, and the fact that many items are not made to be repaired.
Most of this electronic waste comes from the dump site. Some of it is in good condition, I just repair and resell. But some also comes in poor state. I remove parts such as motherboards and give them to individuals who extract capacitors and other important parts.
With an absence of robust laws to address the problem, Africa has become a dumping ground for electronic waste from Western countries.
When some people dispose their waste by banning the cables and banning all the electronic devices, the ones that could be banned, you end up polluting the air. You end up polluting the soil, because when you just throw those electronic devices out in the environment, the dump sites and all that, they'll be rained on. That water will dissolve the toxins from the motherboard, printed circuit boards and all that.
According to the Global E-Waste Monitor report of 2020, 53.6 million metric tons of e-waste were produced each year. If left unchecked, this could double to 120 million tons by 2050.
This center, we are training our students on how to manage their electronic waste in a sustainable way. This is by depolluting the environment and also adapting the circular economy on how best now to handle the e-waste that is generated.
Globally, only 17.4% of e-waste is managed appropriately. Kenya's annual electronic waste generation grew from 3,000 metric tons in 2012 to 51,000 metric tons in 2021. Managing waste has been a huge challenge in Kenya. Most of the e-waste ends up in landfills, while others are recycled and properly disposed of by individuals or companies.
Away from that, crossing over to the news in brief. A court in Burundi has charged 24 people with homosexual practices. A judicial source and a human rights activist in the East African country, which is waging a crackdown on homosexuals, stated. Now, after interrogation, which lasted about 10 days, 17 men and 7 women were charged with homosexual practices and incitement to homosexual practices by the public prosecutor before being imprisoned in the central prison in Gitega, the capital. Away from that, talking about drought. Now, the lack of rainfall remains a major obstacle for this year's crops amidst concerns over food security in Tunisia. Authorities have said they will experiment the use of the cloud seeding technique or artificial rain to bring water to drought-ravaged regions in Tunisia's northwestern region.
Tunisia has primarily relied on rainfall to produce the country's much-needed crops, but years of successive droughts have hampered output. In a bid to boost harvests, the Agriculture Department and the Union of Agriculture and Fisheries, in partnership with private sector companies operating in the agricultural field, are experimenting the use of the cloud seeding technique in Tunisia's northwest region.
Cloud seeding should have been experienced in Tunisia much earlier. Now we have no choice but to use this technique because the rainfall and water reserves are at the lowest level.
The regions of Beja, Jandouba, Kirwan, El Kef and Bizet produce over 90% of Tunisia's crops. Authorities are hopeful that the artificial rain experience will be generalized to all agricultural regions.
The success of the pilot experience will pave the way for more tests. We will provoke rainfall in the most affected regions by drought. It will reduce Tunisia's dependence on seasonal rain.
Tunisia secures about 2/3 of its grain annually through imports. Despite the government's attempts to increase domestic wheat production, experts say drought remains the main challenge for achieving food security in the North African country.
This harvest season will be very difficult, especially for cereals. Tunisia is relying on imports and cannot achieve food security with ongoing low precipitation and drought in some regions. Unfortunately, rain-fed farming constitutes 95% of Tunisia's cropland. Drought threatens our food security this season and in the future.
According to the Tunisian Water Observatory, climate change is making the country's agricultural lands drier and more vulnerable to drought.
Away from that, crossing over to the news in brief. A new attack on the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo on Wednesday night killed more than 40 people, according to local authorities. The attack was attributed to the ADF rebels who are affiliated with the Islamic State group. Now, this toll was confirmed by Asen Mumbere, president of the local civil society, who added that the attacker entered the village Mokondi quietly and killed most of the victims with knife. Away from that, a curfew has been introduced throughout the northern region of Burkina Faso and 2 other provinces to combat terrorist attacks in the Sahelian region. According to Mr. Zongo, the measures aimed at facilitating the actions of the armed force in the border region of Mali. A curfew has been introduced throughout the northern region of Burkina Faso and 2 other provinces to combat terrorist attacks in the Sahelian region. According to Mr. Zongo, the measure is aimed at facilitating the actions of the armed forces in this border between the region of Mali. 2 provinces have also instituted curfews according to notes from local authorities in the Center-East region bordering Ghana and Togo for the entire month of March, and also in Bam in the Center-North region from the 5th of March to the 20th of March 2023. In mid-February, the curfew in effect since 2019 in the eastern region from midnight to 4 a.m. was extended for 3 months until 21st of May. It became inconclusive. Burkina Faso has taken up the fight against terrorist violence head-on, particularly after demanding the departure of French troops from Operation Sabre, which has been present in the West African country since 2009 without any success. Since 2022, the French presence has been increasingly questioned in Burkina Faso, as in many other African nations eager to regain control of their sovereignty. On the 24th of February, Burkinabe authorities terminated the defense agreement signed with French authorities, which allowed the special forces of Operation Sabre to be stationed at the Cambozine base. The soldiers of the Sabre task force could be redeployed to neighboring Niger, which already has nearly 2,000 French personnel. Crossing briefly to Nigeria, the Independent National Electoral Commission has postponed the governorship and state assemblies election earlier scheduled for Saturday to March the 18th. The commission took the decision at its management meeting in Abuja, the capital, which was convened on Wednesday after the Court of Appeal gave it the go-ahead to reconfigure bimodal voters accreditation machines. Now, the meeting, which started at 7 p.m., ended at 10 p.m., was presided over by its national chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu. Away from that, as part of the Southeast Turkey struggle to recover from last month's earthquake, many are questioning why so many relatively modern buildings collapsed in this 7.8 magnitude tremor, with some engineers pointing the fingers at the government policy.
A month on from the earthquake, piles of concrete and twisted metal tower over the roadsides in southeast Turkey's worst-hit towns and cities. Bodies are still buried inside. Millions of tons of debris are slowly being removed. But questions over the level of devastation are not going away. Survivors describe buildings liquefying as the tremors hit, each floor collapsing onto the next. Why did some buildings survive relatively unscathed while others collapsed? Hasan Aksungur is chairman of the Chamber of Civil Engineers in the city of Adana, close to the earthquake zone.
The
fact that the buildings next to those collapsed buildings, which were exposed to the same impact, were not demolished, shows that either the design, the implementation, or the control stages of these collapsed buildings were broken.
Critics of Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan say his government repeatedly offered amnesties for illegal buildings, what Erdogan called zoning peace, allowing builders to skip crucial safety regulations. Millions of buildings were certified in this way.
Since 1985, there have been consecutive zoning amnesties. In the last zoning piece, in 2018, these buildings were given a building registration certificate without being subject to any control, without being subject to anything, by paying certain fees.
Before the earthquake hit, the government was mulling another building amnesty ahead of the May presidential election. Erdogan boasted of these amnesties during the 2019 election campaign, including on a visit to the province of Hatay, now one of the worst hit by the earthquake.
We have solved the problems of 205,000 of the citizens of Hatay with zoning peace.
The Turkish government has not responded to VOA requests for comment. Turkey's Justice Minister has highlighted that opposition parties also supported the building amnesties. And last month, President Erdogan accused rivals of exploiting the earthquake for political gain.
We know that some are rubbing their hands, waiting for the state and the government to fall under the ruins along with our people.
Erdogan has said the presidential election will go ahead in May. The earthquake response and what caused more than 45,000 people to lose their lives looks set to be a key issue as the incumbent president seeks a third term in office.
Good afternoon, dear viewers. You're still tuned into the 1 p.m. news edition, coming to you live and direct from GOLFE TV Africa with Hazel OGBOIGBE. Now, this is the African Newspaper Review, where I get to do a review of the stories that are trending on the African scene. Now, as usual, I'm going to be starting on the pages of The Punch, Nigeria. And on The Punch, Nigeria today, this story says the Independent National Electoral Commission shifts governorship and assembly polls by 1 week. Normally, the 12th of March was, or rather the 11th of March was supposed to be the gubernatorial elections in Nigeria and also the State House of Assembly, but reasons based on the fact that INEC has said they need to reconfigure the beavers. Right now, they have shifted the gubernatorial election by 1 week. So rather than happening on the 11th of March 2023, it's going to happen next week, which is the 18th of March 2023. And still on the pages of the Punch Nigeria, long few queues ground Abuja and neighboring states on the pages of the Punch. And the story says, Buhari can be prosecuted after the 29th of May, says one of the senior advocates of Nigeria. The 29th of May is when the president of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, will hand over to the incoming president, which is Bola Ahmed Tinubu of the All Progressive Congress. Now let's move away from the pages of the Punch Nigeria, crossing over to the pages of the Guardian Post Cameroon. Now, on the pages of the Guardian Post Cameroon today, the top stories that are trending goes thus. Now, on the Guardian Post Cameroon, it says, Ntaring Co-Credit Union mounts podium for 10th year running. On the pages of the Guardian Post Cameroon, that is on the Guardian Post Cameroon. And still, of course, on the pages of the Guardian Post Cameroon, it says, Minister petitioned to annul Wovia Bongila versus Lowa Bonjogo land saga on the pages of the Guardian Post Cameroon. I'm moving with lightning speed because the time is almost up. Now crossing over to the pages of The Nation Malawi. Let's see the stories that are making the rounds in Malawi today. Now on the pages of The Nation Malawi, it's talking about this, and it's saying courts rebuff State House staff on transfer orders, and this story reads, new bid to hike water tariff, state residents and MDF owe 15 billion, and the BWB proposes highest at 90% on the pages of The Nation Malawi. Now crossing away from The Nation Malawi, moving over to my best daily, which is the pages of The Citizen Tanzania. Now let's see what President Samia has been up to on the pages of The Citizen Tanzania. Now, it's talking about democracy is our common goal, Samia tells opposition, and the story says, President Samia Suluhu Hassan addresses a meeting of the women's wing of Chadema in Moshi and says building a democratic nation is everybody's responsibility regardless of their political ideology. The point we need to get to in Africa is a point where we all put all hands on deck and make sure we are working for the common goal of making Africa a continent that is truly great. And I'm going to be moving away from the pages of The Citizen Tanzania, crossing over to the last dailies for today, which is the pages of the Daily Guide Ghana. Let's see the stories that are making the rounds on the Daily Guide Ghana today. And I can see the president of Ghana, President Nana Akufo-Addo, that's him over there. And he says, loans were used wisely, Akufo-Addo speaks. And the story saying, we did not chop COVID-19 funds. President is speaking. And this one is saying, I am worried over vaccine shortage on the pages of the Daily Guide Ghana. Ghana has been facing serious crisis considering the fact that there has been an incessant borrowing from the International Monetary Fund, launching Ghana into a serious debt. There's been inflation, money has not been circulating, people are complaining. And right now you see the president of Ghana, President Nana Akufo-Addo, coming to justify that the money he borrowed from the International Monetary Fund was not used for useless reasons, but it was actually invested in the right place. And our dear viewers, this is why I conclude today's edition of the African Newspaper Review, coming to you live and direct from GOLFE TV Africa. Thanks for tuning in. I am Hazel OGBOIGBE. Enjoy the rest of your day.